Battleground, New York City, the fight for your vote. Your front row seat to the battle for New York's next mayor. It's the old guard clinging to power, chasing a candidate they never saw coming. Every night, our experts break it down.
What New Yorkers want above all else is authenticity.
We're listening to the people who matter most, you, the voters. And when the candidates sit across from us, nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
S.E. Cupp, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in. Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. It is Thursday, September 11th, and we are 54 days away from the all-important New York City mayoral race. It's also a day of remembrance for many of us in New York City and around the nation for the lives lost 24 years ago today in the September 11th attacks. Now, one of the themes of this election has been youth and change. That's not only because the frontrunner, Zohran Mamdani, is young and is promising change, or because he's captured a chunk of the youth vote that other candidates have not been able to, but because a call for change and younger political leaders is sweeping the nation. What's happening in New York City with the 33-year-old Mamdani challenging an old guard is being mirrored all over the country, in fact. And right here in New York City, a 26-year-old decided to challenge 17-term Congressman Jerry Nadler for his congressional seat. Nadler has since announced he's retiring. Take a listen.
I think we need our leaders to be answering the call. And now with the crisis coming from the White House, we need leaders who have the energy and the urgency and the vision, not just to meet this moment, but to see beyond this moment to the better future on the other side of this fascistic presidency that we're undergoing right now. So I think we need leaders who can be builders and protectors and fighters in this moment and not just wait and hope that it passes them by.
We interviewed a young candidate in Connecticut who's challenging 77-year-old incumbent for his seat. We talked to political activists who are encouraging young people to run in these races, even as octogenarian establishment candidates are insisting they aren't going to step aside. Will Democrats hear these voters and empower more Mamdanis to run in races across the country? Or will they cling to power, perhaps at their peril? We've got this and so much more covered on this show, Battleground NYC, from now until the race. Later in today's show, we're going to talk to the co-chair of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America about their candidate and their platform. But first, as always, we get to the latest news fresh from the campaign trail. And joining me now is Hannah Fierick, City Hall reporter for the New York Post. Welcome back, Hannah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, let's start with the anniversary of 9/11, which is today. Where were the candidates? What were they talking about? What was their message on this somber day of remembrance?
Yeah, so we saw pretty much all of the major candidates in the New York City mayoral race: Zohran Mamdani, Eric Adams, Curtis Sliwa, the GOP candidate, and former Governor Andrew Cuomo. They all attended the memorial service today at the World Trade Center. Former Mayor Rudy Giuliani was also there. It was, kind of a bipartisan show of support for this tragedy that struck the city many years ago. And, this is traditionally kind of a day where the campaigns take a pause and really it just kind of underscores the importance of the tragedy and what took place.
I read a recent interview with the New York Times in which Zohran Mamdani is reflecting on life in New York City after 9/11. And I was in my 20s when that happened. I was working in media. I was living in New York. It changed me forever, just as it did many New Yorkers. Mamdani was 9. His generation has a different kind of connection to this tragedy. What is he saying that may resonate with young voters about this day?
Yeah, I definitely think what he was getting at in this interview is that a lot of his voters are that younger generation that may have been alive during 9/11, but they really don't remember it. They remember it through stories their parents told them and things like that. And they don't really understand the weight of it until they get a little bit older. And I think a lot of us younger people, we don't really, kind of grasp the weight until many years later. So I think that's kind of what he was getting at, just sharing as he got older a little bit about the Islamophobia that he faced, as a result of 9/11. As a 9-year-old kid, I believe he had moved to the city only 2 years before that happened. So just kind of watching it change pretty rapidly. And I think he, has a lot of Muslim voters, a lot of young Islam voters, and I think this will definitely resonate with them as well.
Yeah, listen, it's a tricky thing to talk about, right? Because I have a specific memory of it. Young people don't have that memory. And I remember the fear and the lockdowns and the terror alerts. And it was just a very, very fraught time. It's tricky and tough to remember it on this day as always, but it's also tricky for politicians to kind of talk about it. And we're seeing that play out. I want to move on a little bit. Mamdani got an endorsement yesterday from Congressman
Mhm.
Pat Ryan. Now he's a swing district Democrat up the Hudson. He's the first one outside of New York City to endorse Mamdani. What does that mean for the campaign, do you think?
Yeah, I think, this endorsement from Pat Ryan, it's signaling some broader support for Zohran Mamdani. He has previously received support from Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders is a progressive. He's not coming from a swing state. So to show someone who already has some bipartisan support backing Mamdani, it kind of is sending a signal, like, especially to the larger Democratic Party, that the party matters, and to these establishment Democrats as well, and they want to see more people come on board, is how I'm reading this.
Okay, Hannah, stay right there. Battleground NYC will be right back. We're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. Let's get more headlines from the race with Hannah Fierick, City Hall reporter for the New York Post. Hannah, some news from the Eric Adams campaign. Sort of. It's sort of news. We saw a report in an off-the-record roundtable yesterday with about 20 city leaders, in which Adams reportedly shifted his messaging on whether he will consider dropping out of the race. He has been publicly insisting he's not going anywhere despite pressure from Trump and others to drop out. But what happened in this meeting yesterday?
Yes, so what we're hearing from this meeting yesterday is that the mayor did sit down with city leaders and considered, instead of, as recently as last week has been saying, absolutely not, I'm not leaving the race, I'm staying in this race, I'm seeing it through. Now we're hearing that he might actually be ordering an unbiased poll and then making a decision on whether or not he will drop out of the race. And as you know, Essie, this comes, on the heels of a lot of swirling rumors last week about him taking a job with the Trump administration. So this is really just kind of piling on to these questions looming around his candidacy and what we're going to see moving forward, if he will stay in the race or not. I think it's really up in the air, but this news about the polling is definitely peculiar and something that is kind of changing his messaging from last week.
He's opening a door. He's opening the door, right? There's
Yes.
a door. He just opened it a little bit. It's a crack. But
Yeah.
the door was closed before. The door is now open. If he's
It's
saying, I'm going to
definitely
order a
slightly
poll
ajar. Yeah.
and I'll look at the polls, he just opened the door. So that we'll have to watch.
Yes.
Okay, there's another report from the New York Daily News that Andrew Cuomo's campaign got $4,000 in public matching funds off donations made in the names of minors. That is a violation of fundraising compliance laws. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the City Campaign Finance Board, their laws are pretty clear when it comes to donations for minors. Not allowed at all. People who are going to be donating to campaigns, they have to be 18 years or older. And we found, or the Daily News found, reports of a 5-year-old donating thousands of dollars to the Cuomo campaign. And actually some of the parents went on the record and said, this is actually, our child wanted to donate. They wanted to feel involved. So that was a pretty funny development from the Daily News as well. But yeah, it's just kind of a bit of a bizarre uncovering of his campaign finances, and they've previously faced scrutiny over some of these compliance practices with the Campaign Finance Board. So I don't think it's going to be a major blip in his campaign, but it's definitely something to, consider moving forward, that he has had multiple of these discretions.
another weird story. New York City billionaire John Katzimatidis and his family launched a Progress and Prosperity PAC. They're pushing to, quote, stop socialism, that message on his radio stations to help defeat Mamdani, but apparently failed to file the paperwork with the city for that PAC. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, his reasoning behind this, his PAC, he's naming Progress and Prosperity. He's positioning it as sort of a national PAC to stop socialism in the United States as a whole. But the problem with that is that his messaging is very clearly focused on being anti-Zohran Mamdani, which is, as we know, a mayoral candidate in New York City. And because of that, there are a lot of questions arising now on should he be filing that with the City Campaign Finance Board? And people certainly do seem to think that, but the City Campaign Finance Board actually has not commented on that yet. So we have yet to see if there's going to be any compliance issues or lawsuits or anything that come out of
Who's
this.
running this thing?
That's kind of the latest
I
with
just
that.
don't like. It just seems like this whole thing's so loosey-goosey, and yeah, there might be a violation here, and maybe that's a violation,
Yeah.
and who knows? And we'll just, I mean, it's very weird, and I know New York City is an unwieldy large city, so some of this stuff falls through the cracks, but it's odd. Hannah, thanks so much for being here. And up next, Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic nomination, but he ran as a Democratic Socialist. We'll talk to the organization that's supporting him next. And we're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. Joining me now for the bigger picture is Gustavo Gordillo, co-chair of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America, and Arielle Swernoff, the organization's campaigns coordinator. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here. Let's start from the beginning. How long have you guys as an organization known Zohran Mamdani, and how'd you come to know him?
You know, we've known Zohran Mamdani for many years. We first started back in 2017. Our electoral program started to develop when we endorsed 2 city council candidates, one of whom was a Palestinian minister in Bay Ridge, Kader El Yatim, and Zohran's first campaign experience with DSA was on this very campaign. And he says that there were multiple things about this campaign that the political establishment had said was an impossibility. It was a local campaign who was centering beliefs that we need to fight for Palestinian human rights. And he was running for local office while doing this, all of which the political establishment had said was, just couldn't be done. And that's what really brought in organizers like Zohran back then. Then later we elected him to the state assembly. We've run, multiple legislative campaigns with him. So we have a long history.
And he's not the first prominent candidate in New York City that DSA has backed. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the first DSA women to be elected to Congress. Do you see similarities between Mamdani and AOC, or in the ways in which voters are responding to them?
Yeah, I think both of them have at points represented this shift that voters are really hungry for. Folks are very, very frustrated with both parties, the whole political establishment, for really failing to deliver for people what they need, for failing to address the crisis of affordability, for failing to address the fact that rents are too expensive, we can't afford childcare, and for really seeming to care more about the donor class than the working class. And I think AOC really represented a new possibility for people when she was first elected in 2018, and Zohran is representing that possibility now.
And they're both young, and they came from outside the establishment. Sometimes youth can be, it can be a disadvantage, right? Listen, if I were Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams, I'd be running an experience campaign. That's where I'd be going, after Zohran Mamdani. But in this case, and I think in AOC's case too, going against Joe Crowley, the youth is really an asset. And it's not just their fluency in social media. It's just that they are not bringing decades of baggage from their parties and their parents' generation.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. When you look at some of the figures of the Democratic Party establishment, they feel like they're coming from a different era of politics, maybe the
Yeah.
Obama era. And I ask myself, when I think of Donald Trump, I can tell you what he wants to do for America very clearly. When I look at the Democratic Party establishment, it's not clear to me what they stand for. What is their program for the country? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not just the youth of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Zohran Mamdani, but it's the fact that they're part of a new generation that's willing to question the
Yeah.
political orthodoxies that the Democratic Party has been, coasting on.
Yeah, from their own side. I always think that agitation's good. I've done that. I did that on the right for a long time too. But listen, for voters and candidates who say that socialism is bad, socialism has failed, socialism will be dangerous for the city, you've heard it all. And listen, there's some truth in what they say. But what would you say to allay some of the fears, the panic over a socialist candidate potentially becoming the mayor of New York City?
Fundamentally, democratic socialists believe that working people should have power over their lives. Currently, we live in a political system where power is concentrated in the hands of very few. The most important political decisions are made about our lives without the say of ordinary working people. And we want to redistribute power and wealth to create a new system where wealth is shared by more people. And that's why we have this organization, New York City DSA. We exist to fight the ruling class, the billionaires like Jeff Bezos, who are paying their workers poverty wages just to continue to enrich themselves. People like Bill Ackman, the hedge fund billionaire who's trying to buy this election. So we think that those people should not be controlling your lives. You should be controlling your life.
Okay, so to the argument that government-run grocery stores are going to kill neighborhood mom and pop stores like bodegas, in fact, which we've heard on this program from the head of the Bodega and Small Business Association himself. He's very worried about this proposal by Mamdani to have the government run some grocery stores. What do you say to that?
I mean, this is a pilot program. It's been done in a few cities before, and it's really one program per one store per borough to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. But the fundamental problem is that groceries are so expensive. I know you've been to a grocery store recently and seen the price of eggs and milk and vegetables. It's truly unconscionable, and people just can't afford it. So what we really need is new ideas, bold ideas, using the government not to make the wealthy wealthier, but to make people's lives easier and more affordable. And I think we're willing to try a lot of things to try to get there.
He also has some unorthodox ideas on public safety and crime, things like sending mental health officers to respond to certain 911 calls instead of cops, decriminalizing sex work and decriminalizing turnstile jumping. To a lot of people, that sounds too soft on crime. What do you say?
Well, the police themselves say that they're not equipped to respond to mental health crises calls. They've told Zohran Mamdani that this is a proposal that could help them do their job better. We need to equip the city to respond to mental health crises when they're happening. The police are not social workers.
Right. Okay, stay right there because I've got more questions for both of you, Gustavo and Arielle. I appreciate it. More Battleground NYC. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
We're back with Battleground NYC. One more time with Gustavo Gordillo, co-chair of the NYC Democratic Socialists of America, and Arielle Swernoff, the organization's campaigns coordinator. So, guys, this is what I'm really interested in. If I were writing the story of this campaign, the thing I would focus on is the very impressive ground game that DSA and Zohran Mamdani have run. Take me inside. Tell me what makes it so good.
Yeah, so one of the things that we believe when we run campaigns is that anybody who is interested, anyone who's excited can join and can take on leadership, can learn how to do things, can learn how to run a canvas, can learn how to talk to voters and volunteers. Ultimately, this campaign so far has had over 60,000 volunteers. That's close to 1 in every 400 New Yorkers has gotten off their phone, gotten off the couch, knocked on doors, and talked to their neighbors about what we can do to make our lives better and our city a better place. I think it's really powerful. Voters are really tired of campaigns being run just through getting 1 million ads on their television. And it's really refreshing to have the opportunity to contribute, not just through text messages that are like, give me $5, but through going out, engaging with your community, engaging with your neighbors, and talking to people about how we can make the city more affordable.
Right now,
What are you guys doing? Sorry, Gustavo, maybe you're going to answer this question, but if not, go ahead. What are you guys doing that the Democratic Party's not?
Well, I think that the standard Democratic Party establishment-run campaign does not believe that the volunteers can have the authority or the leadership to actually own the campaign and make decisions and take on roles that would ordinarily be only given to staffers. We give those to volunteers who we see with leadership quality. So every weekend, we're training 100 new people to become field leads. That means that they then lead canvases all over the city. I was at a training just like that last week. That means we have 100 new people to go to 100 new neighborhoods every week and lead, a group of 10, 20 totally new canvassers who want to knock on doors and spread the message.
I mean, it sounds really simple, but I feel like in today's political machinations, we've gotten away from ground game. We've gotten away from these simple ways of campaigning that make a really big difference. Okay, Mamdani is distancing himself from some of your platform issues, which I get. It makes sense. It's a general election. But do you see that as a betrayal or smart politics?
I would say that there's a conventional wisdom that a politician, in order to expand their coalition, to bring in new support, that they must dilute and water down their program. And I actually think that Zohran has not done this. And we've proven that by being principled, by having an agenda that you don't back down from, that can actually be a way to build trust with voters and bring in new voters and expand the coalition. So I think that in the core principles and with the top priorities, Zohran has remained very consistent. Those have been our priorities as well. And that's why I think you actually don't see a lot of disunity or disharmony between our organization and the campaign, because we are aligned on what's most important. And we've kept our eye on the ball. And it's that reliability, I think, that's built trust with voters and allowed us to expand the coalition.
Just to be fair to our viewers, I do want to say he literally said my platform is not the same as the national DSA. When asked whether he wanted to eliminate misdemeanor offenses, for example, he said, no, you can't find that on my platform because it's not there. So I think what you're saying is on the big things, he's with you guys, but he's not unafraid to say we don't share the same platform.
That's true. We don't, there are some beliefs that we have that he may not, but on the big things, on the major priorities, we're moving together.
So a new poll it was on many things, but in it was a question on socialism. I found it really interesting. It found that a majority of Americans do not prefer it to capitalism. But a majority of Democrats do, which makes sense, but also is good news for, I'd say, progressives and DSA candidates in places like New York. But is there a warning in this that nationally socialism isn't popular, and so maybe you can't run a Mamdani everywhere?
A plurality of the respondents to that poll were okay with and thought it would be good to have a socialist mayor of New York City. Zohran won 35% of the election districts that went for Donald Trump. We'll see how that carries over to the general, but we've seen working class people in Corona, in Brighton Beach, vote for Zohran Mamdani when previously they had actually been switching from the Democratic Party to vote for Trump.
Well, this is the thing that the Democratic Party is looking at, this exact thing. How can we run a Mamdani everywhere? Because obviously, if the answer is yes, this is a huge blueprint. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out in just over 50 days. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on Battleground NYC, and we'll see you tomorrow and every Monday through Friday until the election.